The worst thing we ever did was put God in the sky, out of reach, pulling the divinity from the leaf, sifting the holy from our bones, insisting that God isn't bursting dazzlement through everything we've made a hard commitment to see as ordinary, stripping the sacred from everywhere to put in a cloud man elsewhere, prying the closeness from your heart. The worst thing we ever did was to take the dance and the song out of the prayer, make it sit up straight and cross its legs, removed it of rejoicing, wiped clean the hip sway, its questions, its ecstatic yowl, its tears. The worst thing we ever did is pretend God isn't the easiest thing in the universe, available to every soul in every breath.
Unitarian Universalism is indeed a faith for all. So bring all of who you are, all of your beliefs, identities, abilities, challenges, and gifts. Bring all of what you've been and all of what you've done. There is room here and spacious grace for all. Our congregation welcomes and includes a wide diversity of beliefs. I invite you to freely translate the language you hear today in the service. If you're visiting for the first time, whether here in person or online, please know how delighted we are that you found us. If you would like more information, please email welcome@uugroton.org, and we'd be glad to get you connected. Thanks to Sophia Santoro, our cantor this morning, and to Bob Fleischer, who is videotaping. The flowers this morning are given by John Appleton in loving memory of his brother on the 30th anniversary of his brother's passing. Flowers downstairs, I think they're still upstairs at the moment, are a gift from Wendy Frank's family. Her life was celebrated here yesterday, and I'm wearing some earrings that she made in honor. We have learned through the pandemic that our sanctuary is not confined to this room or to any place at all. Sanctuary is what we create together. Whenever and from wherever you're joining us, whether you're here in the sanctuary this morning or virtually, please come in and rest for a while. Receive hope and strength. You are so welcome here.
And I will invite us and call us into worship now. I invite you and call you into this time of sanctuary we create together. This time and place where healing can happen and where we re-root ourselves in courage. I ask you to remember that you are held in love. You are seen and known by the love which holds us all and asks us to do the same for ourselves and for one another. So as has become our tradition, I will ring the meditation bowl 3 times and invite you to take some good, deep breaths and to settle yourself here. So this first bell is for you. And this one is for all of the ones you love. And the third one is for our beautiful, struggling world. So our opening hymn this morning is For All That Is Our Life. It is number 128 in the Great Hymnal, if you would like the words. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and to hum or sway or dance as the Spirit moves you and as Sophia sings.
Chalice is a symbol of our UU faith. It was created during World War II for the UU Service Committee, whose members were involved in getting Jews and other persecuted groups out of Europe. It is a symbol of hope and resilience, of resistance to oppression and hatred. Today, we light the chalice as a gathered community once again. Donnie Funch will light our chalice today.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
I'm used to talking about people smaller than me. asked me to light the chalice today and told me the sermon was about inclusion. I had to say yes because this is a topic that means a lot to me and our family. Our family started attending First Parish when our kids were young, almost 30 years ago. As many of you know, our younger son was disabled. He was born with severe quadriplegic cerebral palsy, with many accompanying diagnoses, including severe cognitive impairment and seizures. None of that stopped him from living life or demonstrating the power of a smile, and he had an incredible capacity for joy, which he happily shared with everyone he met. But he was nonverbal and in a wheelchair, couldn't really move his arms or legs, and some people found it difficult, Thanks to many of you and your children in particular, Stephen found a home here in First Parish. I started teaching RE classes for young children so that he could come with me to class. He loved kids. And the kids were fascinated. We set aside one Sunday, and Stephen was the lesson. He loved being the center of attention, so this was like perfect for him. The kids asked all their questions, no holds barred. And wow, do they have questions? What the heck is a wheelchair? What does this do? What does that do? Because he had a fancy wheelchair, kind of like ours. We talked all about the wheelchair. They wanted to know all about Stephen. They touched him. They asked how he ate. They got to see his G-tube. It was great. I had some of Stephen's Switch toys. Big hit. Because Stephen liked toys that involved lights and loud music and all kinds of stuff. And kids started to realize something. They asked questions about Stephen and found out that he loved the same things they did. He loved music. He loved playing in water. Yeah, he actually loved playing in mud, but and he liked fireworks, just like them. Future classes were a lot easier after that. They would make sure that Stephen's wheelchair was in the circle with the rest of them. They would make sure that he got to see all the pictures as we passed them around. If he got bored, once in a while, one of them would take him for a walk in his wheelchair. Over the years, Stephen went to many RE classes. It was always the same. The kids were interested, helpful, and concerned that he participate as fully as possible. They automatically made sure he was the center of attention. In fact, they learned the things that made him laugh, and is that a mistake? They would do everything that they had learned to get him to laugh, and we would sometimes have to stop the lesson. This is inclusion, and it spreads. Those kids grew up being more comfortable around people with disabilities. Knowing someone and spending time getting to know them makes it easier to relate to other people with disabilities. The adults who got to know Stephen also benefited. They learned how to make him laugh from the kids and how patting his head would generate a smile. At his memorial service, many adults who got to know Stephen share their stories about how he had changed their lives. Welcoming people who are different from us does involve some work and often some changes in our thinking, but it can yield huge benefits for both parties. Being fully inclusive involves more than just being welcoming. It is worth the effort. And if you need a little help, I suggest you ask your kids. They're naturals.
This congregation has been singing Spirit of Life for many years. These days we are called to adapt to our current situation by refraining from singing. That is hard. Singing together is so important. Humming is a different kind of delight, but it can be delightful nonetheless. It vibrates internally in a different way than when your mouth is open. It can be soothing both to experience and to listen to. Plus, Sophia's the only one who has to remember the words. So you can remain seated, but we're going to sing Spirit of Life and hum Spirit of Life. We have started lighting a special peace candle for the people of Ukraine and for other people around the world who live in the midst of war. So Sophia's got all sorts of double duty today, and is going to come light the peace candle and read a poem for us and then sing the response to it as well. So take this time while she's lighting and while she's reading and while she's singing to really get in the spirit of praying for peace and safety and freedom.
I'm reading a poem today called I Am Afraid of Nearly Everything, and we don't know who wrote it. I am afraid of nearly everything. Of darkness, hunger, war, children, but most of all, I am afraid of what I may become. Reconciled to injustice, resigned to fear and despair, unchain my hope, make me strong. Stretch me towards the impossible, that I may work for what ought to be. The hungry fed, the enslaved freed, the suffering comforted, the peace accomplished. We light this candle for peace. Thank you.
Okay, now we have a story for the kids and all the rest of us. So let's say our gathering words first. We are Unitarian Universalists with minds that think, hearts that love, and hands ready to help. You should get a microphone, yes. Today's story is called Fast Friends. It's by Heather O'Connor with illustrations by Claudia Davila. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Are you ready, Lars? All right.
Lars has a part in this
Lars has a
story.
part in this. So, Tyson did everything fast. He printed fast. He moved fast. He ate fast. And sometimes it made him knock over his chair or the red paint or the kids in his class. And the teacher was always saying,
Too fast, Tyson. Too fast. Recess was different. Tyson could jump and climb and race around the schoolyard speedy quick, but he couldn't go outside until everyone was ready. So every day, Tyson had to wait and wait and wait. And some days, he'd say,
"Hurry up!" Those days, Tyson played alone. One day, a new kid joined the class. "This is Suze," said the teacher. Suze didn't say hello. She didn't smile. She didn't even look at anyone. But she did check out the race car picture hanging on the wall. And Tyson saw her. The car was red and shiny, just like her chair. And the driver wore a crash helmet just like Suze. At lunch, Tyson finished speedy quick. But Suze ate her lunch through a tube, so she was even faster. But when Tyson reached for his favorite book, he noticed Suze already had her eye on it. "Want to read?" he asked. When it was time to go outside, the teacher picked Raph to walk with Suze, even though Tyson's hand shot up first. "Be careful, Raph. Walk slowly," said the teacher. Raph did. So slowly that Suze took a snooze. The next day, Tyson read to Suze again. This time, the teacher picked Lisa to walk with Suze. Lisa watched the big kids play basketball. Suze did not watch. On his way home after school, Tyson heard beep, 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 beep. Coming through. He jumped out of the way. A shiny red chair whizzed by, speedy quick. It was Sue's, and a big girl was pushing her.
Coming through, she shouted again. Tyson caught up with them at the park. He climbed on the swing beside Sue's. Race you! He pumped as hard as he could. Wanna go fast, Suze? asked the big girl.
Suze waved her arms. Faster? Sue's smile was big and wide. When Suze and Tyson were all tuckered out, the big girl said, "Time to get my sister home. See ya, Speedy." And she zipped off with Suze, shouting, "Beep, beep, beep, beep." The next day at recess, Tyson's hand was up in a flash. "Can I play with Suze?" The teacher wore his frowny face. "Okay, Tyson, but be careful." Tyson would be careful, but he would be speedy quick too. "Start your engine, Suze!" And he raced her around the schoolyard. Suze and Tyson zigzagged past the teachers on yard duty. Beep, 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 beep. Let's hear what you guys think the teachers yelled at them.
Slow down! Be careful! Too fast! Do you think that Tyson slowed down when he knew that Suze loved going fast? No! Suze and Tyson raced past the kids in their class. Beep, beep! The kids stopped playing and they ran after them and they cut through the basketball court yelling, "Coming through!"
The basketball players stopped shooting their hoops and started chasing Suze and Tyson. Then Tyson and the teachers and the kids and the basketball players all heard a new sound, one they had never heard before. It was Suze. She was waving her arms and laughing great, big, happy belly laughs. Tyson grinned. He wasn't too fast. He was speedy quick. And that was just fast enough. So thank you to Lars and his godfather John for helping us tell that story. Sophia is going to start our time of meditation and prayer with "I Am Light" by Grammy Award-winning neo-soul and R&B singer India Ari. So I invite you to really let the truth of this song sink in as you listen and hum if you like.
I
We will begin in spoken prayer with words by Reverend Richard Gilbert. I inhale and exhale in regular rhythm and act, so common I never pay attention, and when I do, I am overwhelmed by the wonder of it. I eat my food as I have done for 1,000 days, a practice so frequent I hardly notice the miraculous million events that happen in my body, and when I do, I am taken with their beauty. I greet my loved ones as I have greeted them for years. I do it casually until I realize the deep poignancy of greetings and farewells, how precious they are. Perhaps it is middle age or old age, or perhaps I am wakening to life, wakening to the poignancy of living these days. I only know that I feel more deeply with the passing years, and that the common things become uncommon, and that the ordinary becomes extraordinary, and the everyday becomes sacred, and the tears and laughter come. So as we pray together in this sacred old house, let us begin with gratitude. Gratitude for this new morning and this new season unfolding in crocuses and green haze barely showing on the trees. Let us give thanks for kind faces and coffee and warmth and going fast and music and the sweet, sweet voices of children. Today we share in Sean and Monica's joy at the birth of their new grandbaby, Hayes, Cronin, and McCann. Welcome to the world. We give thanks that Sue G. turned 80 yesterday. And we hold in loving prayer Ray, Leah, Jonas, and Kelsey Chimney, and all who loved Wendy Frank, and all who came to celebrate her life yesterday. We pray for Peg and Trish on the death of their sweet dog Tula, who was beloved by all who knew her. We send prayers of healing to Chuck, to Megan and Tommy, to Chris G. And we pray for Mary and Chris on the death of Chris's brother. He died last night. We continue our prayers for the people of Ukraine and for President Zelensky, for courage and strength for the Russians who are bravely resisting this war. We pray for Vladimir Putin that his heart will be softened and for justice to prevail. We pray for all living through war and violence, and we send our prayers to refugees everywhere. And at the beginning of this month of Ramadan, we pray for all who celebrate. May this be a time of reflection and healing and deep joy. As we sit in quiet and in the sanctuary of these walls, may we find the path that returns us to the sanctuary of our hearts, the sanctuary of one another, where we are known as whole, and where we are called to remember again and again that God is the easiest thing in the universe, available to every soul in every breath. So let's rest a moment in quiet and pray the prayers of our own hearts.
Our generosity sustains this congregation. Our generosity allows us to continue to live out our mission, to deepen spiritually, to take care of each other, and to be a blessing to this world. We couldn't do it without all of us. At the very same time, in this community, our belonging will never be measured by our ability to contribute financially. If you're able, donations in any amount are welcome, needed, and so very much appreciated. If you're visiting us for the first time today, let this service be a gift to you, and let the boxes pass you by. The morning offering will be given and gratefully received. And you're welcome to sing along with our hum along with our singing ministers. The song is Holy Now by Peter.
When I was a kid each week, on Sunday we would go to church, pay attention to the priest, and he would sing a holy word, consecrate the holy bread, and everyone would kneel and bow. Today the only difference is everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. When I was in Sunday school, we would learn about the time Moses split the sea in two, Jesus made the water wine. I remember feeling sad, the miracles don't happen still, but now I can't keep track. Everything's a miracle. Everything's a miracle. Wine from water is not so small, but an even better magic trick is that anything is here at all. So the challenging thing becomes not to look for miracles, but finding where there isn't one. When holy water was rare at best, it barely wet my fingertips. Now I have to hold my breath like I'm swimming in a sea of it. Used to be a world half there, heaven's second-rate hand-me-down. Now I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. Read a questioning child's face, say it's not a testament, that'd be very hard to say. See another new morning come, say it's not a sacrament, I tell you that it can't be done. This morning outside I stood, I saw a little red ringed bird, shine like a burning bush, sing like a scripture verse. It made me want to bow my head. I remember when church let out, how things have changed since then. Everything is holy now. It used to be a world half there, heaven's second-rate hand-me-downs. Now I'm walking with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy. my late 20s that I have never forgotten. It was a seemingly ordinary interaction with my dear friend Diana. She was then in her late 50s, and she said to me, just as part of a regular conversation that I don't remember, well, you're one of the most deeply spiritual people I've ever known. And it stuck with me because I had no idea what she was talking about. I had never once said a single word to her that I would have considered spiritual. Not one word. In fact, I actually never even tried to articulate my own spirituality until 30 years later when I got this wacky call to ministry that felt like a prank call. Or maybe a wrong number. I'm not saying I didn't have spiritual experiences and beliefs. I totally did, but not words. I never had words for them. And looking back, I can understand how I was sort of steeped in spirituality from the time I was a little kid. But I had no idea that spiritual is what someone might call what I was experiencing. I've had deep and profound spiritual experiences with folks I've worked with in music therapy, most recently in hospice, but also in the 10 years before hospice with folks of all ages who had severe and profound intellectual disabilities, people who are nonverbal, whose cognitive abilities are under 12 months developmentally. I've also had a lot of spiritual experiences with my son Lars. He's now 18, and he has profound and complex intellectual and physical disabilities. Some of you have heard me talk about Lars before. It's hard to stop me from doing that. But developmentally, he's about 4 or 5 months old. He doesn't talk or walk. He's blind. He has no formal system of communication. He's not a guy who thinks in words or ideas. He experiences the world like Stephen did, sensory and emotion-based. Lars is highly relational. He has a great memory for people. And he sort of reads people's energy like I might read a sign. He loves puffed Cheetos and grilled salmon and spicy things. He loves music deeply, except Prince. He hates Prince. I have no idea why. He adores his own voice and everybody's voice who's ever sung with him. And of course, just like Suze from our story today, Lars loves moving fast in his wheelchair. Some of you knew Donnie and Paul's son, Stephen, who was, of course, similar to Lars in many ways, and who grew up, as Donnie said, in this congregation. Lars's first several years were at the Unitarian Universalist Church in Framingham. They knew and accepted him there, but when we moved too far away from Framingham to commute there for church, Lars and I and my daughter Josie went on a search for a new church community. We tried dozens of Unitarian Universalist churches, and to say that they weren't exactly welcoming would be an understatement. Even if we came back a second or a third time, I rarely remember anyone even greeting our little ragtag family. There is a lot of emphasis in this religion and in others on words and ideas, on the working of complicated concepts, on the very cognitive, free and responsible search for truth and meaning. And that's great for the people for whom it's great. Over the years, people from many different religious traditions, including ours, however, have made it clear to me that they don't believe that folks like Lars and Stephen have the capacity to have meaningful spiritual experiences based on their low IQ and their lack of words. I happen to believe that the Universalist side of our heritage would disagree with that assertion. Our religion grew out of two separate liberal Protestant traditions, the Unitarians and the Universalists. There is a lot to be said about each of them, but in very, very broad terms, Universalism was the more working class, rural religion, and Unitarianism was the more urban, college-educated. Universalists believe that in the end, we are all reconciled with God, and no one is left out. So understand that this was in wild, extreme contrast with almost all Christian theologies, which until about the 19th century taught that only some people were saved and the rest were doomed to eternal torment in hell, including in this church. Biographer Alfred Cole described this unbelievably radical message of Universalism as "give them not hell, but hope and courage. Preach the kindness and everlasting love of God." In many evangelical Christian circles today, Universalism is still considered high heresy. Rob Hardy's, who was minister of All Souls UU in UU Church in DC for about 20 years, remarked that in spite of this opposition to and fear of universalism, he has yet to encounter a church called Some Souls. But the First Parish Church of Groton, Massachusetts, says so clearly and boldly every single week that our Universalist theology is all about universal love. Love for all, love that will not let us go, or let us down, or let us off the hook. So has anyone else here had an experience of a kind of breathtaking love or a moment of transcendence, maybe an expansive, momentary sense of something much bigger, something that felt spiritual but that you had no words for? Anyone? A few of us? Okay, there's some hands. All right. So, were those experiences meaningful and important to you in spite of the fact that you had no words for them? Yes? Okay. All right. And would you be interested in anyone else's evaluation of your experience? Would you be interested? No? Would you be interested in their assessment of how valuable it was for you based on what you could say about it?
No.
No. Okay. So what I'm very obviously trying to illustrate here is that none of us has the right to assert that the quality of somebody else's spirituality is less than because they can't articulate it. When Howard Gardner was researching his theory of multiple intelligences, he considered the idea of making spirituality a kind of intelligence, but he decided against it. And to me, that points to what I know in my gut from experience. A sense of spiritual connection can be deeply and abundantly present, also in the absence of what's usually measured as intelligence. A lack of words to describe a spiritual experience does not affect its presence or its power. I had a hospice patient who had been with his husband since 1943. They met as 18-year-old draftees into the U.S. Army. My patient was in the very last stages of dementia. He wasn't able to show awareness of others. And when he was in his last hours in our hospice house, his 95-year-old husband, who did not have dementia, sat by his side all day, holding his hand, talking with him, praying, humming, reading his favorite poetry out loud. There was no doubt in his mind that the man he had been devoted to for 77 years still had deep and abundant spiritual presence. He asked me to sing his partner's favorite hymn. Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn. So you may or may not know that there is such a thing as disability theology. Most disability theology, like the disability rights movement, centers around physical disability, including sensory. The parts that do address intellectual disability almost always refer to people with mild or moderate intellectual disability. Because of my experiences as a parent and as a music therapist, I'm particularly interested particularly interested in bringing forward the idea of spirituality as it relates to profound intellectual disability. So Irish Christian theologian Jill Harshaw, who has a daughter who's a lot like Lars and Stephen, writes about the Jewish and Christian theological concept that's called the Doctrine of Divine Accommodation. Okay. Accommodation here refers to the process of adapting or adjusting to something. Okay? The basic idea of divine accommodation is that God, love, the universe, is by nature infinite and vast and not fully knowable. Humans, on the other hand, are by nature finite and limited. So God accommodates our human limitations by reaching us, communicating with us in ways that are within our capacity to receive. Ways that allow us to come to know and form a relationship with God. Now, if the word God doesn't work for you, great, translate it. Let's try love. Think about love. Think about all the ways love is communicated, is felt, is shown, is expressed and given and received. That's an infinite and vast and not fully knowable concept. That's what I'm talking about. Or think about the universe. Think about the interdependent web of life and the ways that we belong and affect and are affected by that. It's infinite and vast and not fully knowable. That's what I'm talking about. Stephen Bennon, who wrote a book on divine accommodation, describes it as divinity adapting itself and making itself comprehensible to humanity in human terms. So divine love, when it shows up, when it reveals itself, does that in a way that the person receiving it is able to feel, is able to understand. And Harshaw points out that lots of Christian theologians have argued that actually the Bible refers to God resembling humans because some humans need mental images and body metaphors in order to understand God. That's how we got the old bearded white guy in the sky metaphor. So the question is, why wouldn't God, why wouldn't love do whatever it is that people with profound intellectual disabilities need God to do so that they too could experience that love? If Universalism had a disability theology, I think it should include this Christian and Jewish idea of divine accommodation. Harshaw cites a 4th century bishop by the name of Gregory of Nyssa, who beautifully wrote that God communicates beyond words, like a tender parent joining the inarticulate utterances of their baby. And that idea fits perfectly with our universalism. God, love, always presents itself to us exactly as we are. Our Universalist ancestors taught us that we don't have to make God love us. That's a done deal, no matter who we are, no matter what we've done. We say it here every week. Our Universalist job is to be expansive, to fall in love with being alive, to fall in love with the world and each other over and over again. So much so that people can't help but feel our vast, expansive love when they're with us. And that is a job that Lars can do just as well as I can. Some days better. Universalism emphasizes relationship, fundamental interdependence, interconnectedness, and it means no one's outside of divine love. Grace and love available to all humans are at the center. So we strive to create a world that reflects that kind of love. And because of this fundamental relational interconnectedness, love and grace and divinity and God can be felt as tender, gentle interactions during caregiving. Can be felt when someone understands that you like to go fast in your wheelchair. Can be felt as the sweetness of holding a hand. Can be felt as the sound of someone lovingly humming in your ear. It's beyond words. Reverend Sean Parker Dennison writes, Our Universalist theology makes it impossible for us to treat some humans as expendable. What could be possible if we as individuals could ever really get rid of the idea that somebody is more worthy than somebody else? What could be possible if we as a denomination could ever really get rid of the idea that somebody is more worthy than somebody else? Where would we arrive? What would it mean for our faith? And what could we be if we fully included people with profound intellectual disabilities and their families? What do access in church and religious education mean in this context? We heard some of it from Donnie. How do we and our theology, our language, our ministry, our structures, our interactions, how do we practically provide meaningful and appropriate support and inclusion? And First Parish Church of Groton has something to teach the denomination about that. Stephen and his family changed this place, and it made it so much more ready for Lars and his family. How do we, in turn, help other churches who haven't yet had the opportunity to do that learning? Unitarian Universalism is a faith that's covenantal and not creedal. That means we don't think religion is about what you believe. It's about how you live. It's about community, and it's about experience. But that doesn't mean that our beliefs aren't important, because our beliefs shape what we create. And our religion is all about opening our hearts and doing the work of living into our theology, each according to our abilities and gifts. So what we believe about the experiences of folks like Stephen and Lars will shape our theology, and that will shape what we create. We can each have unique experiences of deep loving and belonging that take our breath away and defy words. Maybe for you they're with a tree or in a forest, by a river, in music, with children, with animals, maybe while you're running, while you're biking, maybe here together in community. Many people's way of being in the world doesn't center around thinking and words and ideas. Our Universalist heritage gifts us this profoundly beautiful theology, which is that no one is expendable. Religious and spiritual experiences like belonging, like awe, like feeling fully accepted and loved and valued just as we are right now, are here for everyone, regardless of cognitive capacity. In our opening words, poet Shelton Harkin asserted that the worst thing we ever did is pretend God isn't the easiest thing in this universe, available to every soul in every breath. Every soul, every breath. Amen. So when the Teal hymnal, Singing the Journey, was printed, it included number 1014, which was then called Standing on the Side of Love by Jason Shelton. One of the Unitarian Universalist nationwide public advocacy campaigns was also named Standing on the Side of Love. But after UU disability rights activists made it clear that the use of the word standing was problematic, the advocacy campaign changed its name to Side with Love. And composer Jason Shelton rewrote the words and the title of this hymn to be more inclusive. The updated title is Answering the Call of Love. And the updated lyrics are in your order of service. And today, Sophia is the only one who has to make that adaptation. So please rise if you are able in body and or spirit as we hum our closing song.
will you put a hand on your heart and with the other reach out and let's look at one another's beautiful faces. And know that we are connected, we are woven together by strong and sturdy threads of love.
Go in peace. Be a blessing.